Okay, great. So thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. This is Troy Winfrey, and he was in New College a little before I was. Started in '87, and he's also currently on the board of directors for the NCAA, New College Alumni Association, and he also moderates. For those of you who don't know, he also moderates a Facebook group for alums, which you are eligible to join after you've sat in one contract. So it's open to you. And so he's very involved, and obviously he's going to be talking to you about tech jobs. And I know he's got some specific things he wants to let you know, but we're also going to take questions, and I'm sure he'll just weave it in.
Absolutely.
Right? So since there's just a few people, would you all mind just going around and introducing yourself and saying what your AOC is and anything else that's, what year you are, what your AOC is, and if you have any particular niche interests, that'll help him. Help you. Okay. All right, go ahead.
So I guess I'll go first. I'm Garrett. I'm a double AOC in computer science and economics with a slash in finance and possibly a niche interest in Chinese as well. I recently just switched my AOC to that double. Originally I was economics, but I added computer science this semester. So I'm a first year as well.
Hey, my name is Mimi. I'm a third year. I'm also computer science and economics, double AOC with a slash in finance. I also started out as an econ AOC and then added comp sci, and I want to go into iOS development.
Okay.
I'm Timothy, and I'm first year, and I'm computer science AOC, and thinking about going for like independent developer position in the future, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Fantastic.
And I'm sorry, for some reason I cannot adjust the volume on this, so can you hear him okay? Yeah, okay. Y'all want to start with
Probably just mine too. Maybe.
No.
All right.
Yeah. So when you're first starting out your job search, especially in the software industry, how do you mitigate that feeling of desperation and hopelessness that you get when you're looking at all these job boards? You're like, I don't know if I'm qualified.
I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Having a little trouble hearing you. Could you repeat maybe, or?
Do you have like a microphone?
No, but I can raise that up.
I can just like go over there.
Raise that up, and that'll allow me to bring it closer. Okay, I'm gonna bring it right up here for you. All right, Mimi, try it.
There we go.
Try that
I
again.
hope this works. But when you're first starting out your job search, right? How do you keep up the motivation to just apply one after the other, even though you're not sure that you're qualified for the positions that you're applying for?
How do you stay motivated?
Yeah.
Think of the money.
But like this, okay, so
Think of the money.
But do you have any other strategies if money is not
Hold on a second.
what you're looking for?
This is, all right. I'm sorry, I just had to print out some notes here. Okay, so.
Actually, let me narrow that down a little bit more.
I'm sorry.
Let me narrow that down a little bit more.
Sure.
Do you have any specific strategies for job searching if there's no real career fairs around the area? And how do you stay motivated with looking for them? Is what I actually mean.
Well, this goes back to a very important point, which is where you go is going to have profound effects on your life that will not become apparent until much, much later, until you're my age. So given that, you don't really have to worry about it so much. You should go where you feel would be a good place for you to go, in other words.
But what if you don't know where to go because there's nowhere like open? You know what I mean?
Are you talking about how to uncover jobs?
Yes.
How to
That's what I
uncover
mean.
jobs?
How to uncover jobs. Job fairs are standard. They're probably not going to be an option for you guys. I'll be straight up honest. It is not, New College is not well known enough to attract big employers, and they're not located in Sarasota. So given that, You can still go for a big employer, but you're going to have to change your strategy somewhat. Overall, though, since you guys are going into a tech field, you shouldn't have that much trouble. You're just going to have to think about where you would like to be, and that has to do with the other two important things, the problems that you want to tackle and what's going to be hot.
You want to give a for example?
So do you have a thought about areas you'd like to be involved in?
You mean areas of tech or actual physical areas?
Tech or particular computer science problems or anything like that?
Yeah, I want to solve within iOS, I would say definitely user experience and some kind of social problem.
To get some kind of
Social problem with technology to solve
social
it.
problem. All right.
Not necessarily like social justice problem, just like social problem. You like make things more convenient for people.
Yes. Stanford, if you can get in for grad school, is probably your best bet for that. Carnegie Mellon is another strong choice.
I don't necessarily want to go to grad school.
It may become more attractive as you go, but that's just a thought in terms of people who are working on those problems. DC is probably a good place for you to go to explore these interests because there's government work, but what people don't realize is there is this huge ecosystem around the government. A lot of nonprofits and social engineer type things have offices in DC because that's where the lobbyists are, right? So there are nonprofits ranging from the World Wildlife Fund to Clean Water for Rural India, just about anything you can think of, right? So if you're looking for work like that, they usually need people with a tech background. They almost always need people with a tech background.
I don't mean to take up too much of the conversation, but that's not really the social work I'm looking for. I want to make it easier, for example, for people to find friends after they've graduated, or to find a good restaurant that they want to go to, stuff like that. Not humanitarian work.
Okay.
And I do want a good salary.
That's going to have a lot of opportunity. For that, you want there are a number of ways to solve that problem. But you probably want to find an agency that does app development. And again, a lot of those are going to be in DC because their clients will be people like the World Wildlife Fund, right? Okay, we need an app to encourage people to adopt a tiger, which is really about making them donate. How can we do that, right? There's going to be a technical aspect, and there's going to be a user experience aspect of how can the app persuade people to donate. And so they will go to an agency because they don't have that capability within them. And that's where you come in, and you will help them code the app and so forth, right? If you do this for a little while, you can keep doing it if you want, or you can pretty much write your own ticket because after that time, you will be hotly sought after if you have experience building apps, especially in iOS.
Where can she uncover agencies like that to apply to or pursue? We're talking a Google search, or is there a clearinghouse or networking?
Google search is probably the best way to locate them. Look for interactive agencies and then geographical keyword.
And what does she have to be doing now as an undergraduate to be competitive for those jobs?
That is the most important part of what I will say today. And that is, make something. Make something.
Good. I'm doing 3 of those somethings, so hopefully.
Make something crappy. Just make something. Because I'll tell you what your big problem is. You guys have a signaling problem, okay? And that is, you will find this again and again and again in your career. Humans don't trust other humans. And that is because we are one of the most violent species on Earth. This is an evolutionary thing. We trust our family and close friends, but then strangers have to earn our trust, right? So how this works out for you is, when you get out, why is an employer going to trust you with $50,000 a year and a lot of company secrets? Now, let's say you went to Stanford or Harvard. That is a powerful signaling device, which is why people pay $50,000 a year to go to Stanford, right? Well, if they got into Stanford and made it through, they must be okay. And New College is getting there, but we got a ways to go still, right? You're the intellectual equal of anybody from Stanford. I believe that very strongly. But you need to show people that you are. So, for example, that's where making something comes in. When you make a portfolio, if you make a crappy little app or a game or something like that, even if it's not polished, you're going to look impressive. So what I'm going to tell the non-techies is about Courtney from the University of Georgia. And Courtney is 23 years old and just got out of the University of Georgia with a degree in advertising. Courtney is not going to set any intellectual fires during her career. And advertising at Georgia is not really for smart people. But what they do is they have made her make ad after ad after ad after ad. So when she gets out, it doesn't matter that she's much less smart than you are. She has this stock of portfolio pieces, and people look at it and they'd be like, oh, yeah, she's worth a chance. And so they hire her, right? New college people, in my experience, are much more creative and adaptive and learn faster and just are less likely to blow up the company doing something stupid, frankly. And this is an issue, right, with a lot of companies. So all you have to do is get over that initial hump. Well, here's some things I made. This is what I can do. And that's it, basically. Ideally, they will be things related to what you claim you want to do. So, for example, a cheap app about helping people find, I don't know, socially conscious restaurants, if that's what you're into, or whatever, right?
Does it make a difference if they do it on their own or through an internship? Is it the product, or does the reference also help?
It doesn't really matter. You will find that most engineers want to know if you're all talk or if you can actually code. And when you're starting out, engineers are probably going to be the people who hire you, mostly. As you go up the ladder, you're going to be dealing with more and more technical, non-technical people. But starting out, it's probably going to be somebody with 3 to 5 years of coding experience who's been building applications and programs for a while. And so lots of people come out and they talk a great game, but they've never actually built anything. They don't have the sort of mindset that makes them want to build stuff. Like, oh, here's something I've been playing around with in my spare time, right? Here's something I've been tinkering on, that sort of thing. That is really, really powerful. If you get a computer science degree, you probably know a lot of things like efficient sort algorithms and stuff like that. They like that, that's great, but what they really want to know about is, can you build an app in JavaScript or your language of choice that will run pretty well the first time out? Do you have good coding habits? Do you do like all these sort of kludge things because you sort of like taught yourself and, you know, just did whatever worked instead of like thinking through a program? Is your code clean? Is it well commented? That sort of stuff, right? And that's what they want. They want proof you can do the job. As you go on, you'll have to worry about other stuff, but that's a talk for another day. Off the bat, they want to have a pretty good idea that if they sit you down and say, okay, we're working on this new interface for an ATM, give it a shot and see what you can come up with, right? And they want to know that you can actually write code if they ask you to write code. Thing is, there are people who are going to be much better than you everywhere you go, because that's just the way of life, right? But what you have to worry about is showing that you can do the work.
How many of these kind of projects should they attempt to have done and ready by the time they graduate? Is there a bottom number or a sweet spot there?
Not really. It would depend. One is infinitely better than none. More than 4 or 5 is probably too much. If you have one really interesting thing that you've worked on that looks good, that you're proud of, that's fine. If you have fewer, that's fine. If you can even talk about your thesis in an interesting way, that's also fine. Too many people do a thesis at New College and then just completely ignore it when they're trying to find a job. But what you do when you do a thesis is a long, complicated, hard project that needs lots of managing and has a tight deadline and high stakes. And if you talk about that, you will seem better than every other undergrad who's applying for this in the room. Talk about how you managed it, how you kept up with deadlines, how you, incorporated feedback. That's something else managers want to hear. Because they do want to hire a genius, but they also don't want to hire a butthead. So
along those lines, speaking of projects, how acceptably ugly is your GitHub allowed to be? So like if your readmes don't necessarily exist, you know what I mean? And your code isn't really well commented, is that okay when you're starting out, or like when you're starting out looking for a job? Or do I need to go back and fix them up?
You got to take the long view. Get good habits now. The car is not going 70 miles an hour. When it's going 70 miles an hour, it's going to be a lot harder to learn new habits, right? So do it now. Put in comments. Ask each other if you can read each other's code. Just like, Mimi, what the hell are you trying to do here? Or whatever, right? It shouldn't have to compile before they figure out what you're trying to do. You should get an idea. And ideally, you'll know you've made it when somebody's like, ooh, that's really cool. I see that now. If you've come up with some cool little hack or whatever and people can understand it, that's what it is. And it's just good work habits because in nearly every case, you guys are going to be working with somebody else at some point. And if you make their job easier by having clean, well-commented code, then you're going to look like a hero, even if your code is kind of crappy, frankly, because nobody likes commenting their code. Nobody. If you are the one person who does that on the team, you will be given a lot of room, a lot of latitude. So it's just a good habit. You don't have to write a dictionary or anything, but just, get in the habit of doing it so other people can read it, because they're going to have to look at it and maintain it and all that. And you just want to be easy to work with. It's basically, I look like I know what I'm doing, and I look like I would be easy to work with. Those are the two things that get you hired.
Now I can ask Troy some questions to prompt some other topics, but I wonder, are there questions that y'all have yet so far? Not yet, that's okay.
No,
Eric, you?
not yet.
Okay.
No.
Nini, do you have more questions? We can totally take your questions. We've got time.
Yeah, okay.
Go
So
for it.
earlier you alluded to the fact that it might be an attractive option for me to pursue grad school right out of college. Why do you think so?
Maybe not right out of college, but at some point. That is because from a career standpoint, getting a graduate degree is going to open a lot of doors for you.
What kind of doors?
Yeah, what kind of doors?
What kind of doors?
Well, more importantly, what a lot of people don't realize, one reason elite grad schools are elite is because elite people go to them. So one reason, for example, why Stanford's computer science department is so awesome is because people like Mark Zuckerberg hang around there. And you might actually do an internship with Mark Zuckerberg or the next Mark Zuckerberg, right? Or know somebody who knows Mark Zuckerberg. And that's a major reason why grad schools get ranked. So in other words, you never have to interview for a job again. Zuckerberg sees your work and he's like, oh yeah, come on, here's your offer. And you have 2 other very competitive offers because people know that you did this project and so forth. So part of grad school is the connections that it can cause. It's not about what it can teach you, although that's interesting, but it's the jobs you get while you're doing it. So when I went to grad school for this field, I changed careers like at 35, about 10 years ago, and got a fellowship there and was working closely with my advisor. Her brother was a top-tier consultant to a lot of Fortune 500 companies. And since I had gotten in with support, she recommended me to him to go on his consulting jobs. And I learned more from him than I learned in 3 years of graduate school. Just actually working with clients in the Fortune 500, doing eye tracking and user experience and all that stuff. And it's been invaluable. And that's why you go to grad school. And then people he knew met me because he knew them and I could use his name to get indoors, and it got me a lot of work and so forth. So what you want to do is escape the whole applying for a job system. That's for suckers. You want to break in line. You want people to seek you out. It's a little hard to get there, but it's worth it, believe me. You don't have to go to grad school for this, but that's why you go to a really good grad school if you go, because that's what happened to you if you try. You'll meet people, they'll give you work. People will show up at the department saying, I have this hard technical problem. Do you have any students that'll work on it? And your advisor says, why, yes, I do. And, I'll bill you $150 an hour. Is that okay? And he'll give you like 70 or 80 of that. And bam, you're off to the races.
Is this additional signaling at all necessary if you want to become an independent developer?
Yes, it is crucial if you want to be an independent developer. There are 2 things. If you want to be independent, you need to be specialized. You need to be well-known in your area of specialty. In a way, you guys are kind of like carpenters. You build things. And when you think about it, there are some carpenters still nowadays who just do hand-carved chair legs. That's a really obscure specialty, but since they're among the best, if you want a fancy chair leg, they're the guy you go to. And you pay what he asks, which is, typically 3 times what the regular guy does, right? But you get this beautiful hand-carved leg. But he's a specialist. He doesn't do chair arms. He doesn't do chair backs. He does chair legs. He doesn't compromise on the price. Every once in a while, he goes hungry because he's a specialist. But he does, work according to his own schedule. The difference here is he has the chance to make a lot more money, but if you guys just show up to work, you generally will keep getting paid, at least for a while. And this seems kind of silly, but when you're an adult, it becomes very, very important. Like if you have a mortgage to meet, or if you have a kid, that steady paycheck is a big thing. But you won't make nearly as much, I'll tell you that. So it's a choice you both have to make. And also, am I a guy who makes chairs, or am I the best chair leg maker in the world, right? So if you want to be an independent developer, you're going to have to research more than I know offhand about what fields to go into. Security and AI are probably big ones. Various artificial intelligence sort of thing. Or some weird technical specialty that nobody likes, like optimizing very large code bases, something like that. If you poke around, you'll get some ideas. And also you can ask your professors what they think, what specialists are usually called in for. You'll want to go to grad school because you're going to need advanced credentials to be more believable. You're going to need as many contacts as possible. You need to become a figure in a community. And this goes for everybody. One of the best ways to get hired is to start volunteering for some open source project that you like. And there are a million of them. Maybe it's cleaning up the Drupal interface. Maybe it's a new engine for multi-user dungeons. I mean, it doesn't have to be like the most serious thing in the world, you know. There are all these projects now on GitHub and so forth. Join one and start getting good at it, because then people will come seek you out. Oh, yes, he's the guy that like did that hack to set up a Drupal chat room in like half the time. Yes, we will hire him. And people your age are doing stuff like this all the time. And smart recruiters know to look there first. And you get an email, hey, are you free? Do you want to work on this project? Blah, blah, blah. So, and that goes with your portfolio as well. You know, you can say, well, I worked on this, blah, blah, blah. Typically Ubuntu and things like that, any major open source movement, they have room for new people coming on, and it can be really useful. It'll get you used to working with other developers remotely, which is a great skill to have, because that often happens nowadays. But basically, anything you're interested in, you can find a user group, you can find an open source project doing something with it, something like that. Don't get involved with anything you think you need to get involved with. Get involved with something that you like, because there's enough of it out there. If it doesn't like make you interested, don't do it. With this or anything else.
You'll do better work, right? You're naturally fascinated by it.
And that's one way to get motivated, by the way, to do a job search. Hey, what if I could do this all day long and get paid for it? You know, that should be your question. It's not as easy as that, but it's easier than a lot of people realize. So.
Are you three interested in knowing about, you know, our title was Hot Jobs, right? Hot paying jobs. Do you want to know what Troy knows about that, or do you have enough of your own interest that it's really not as big a question for you?
No,
I want to know.
yeah, I'm interested.
All right, so we're gonna call your bluff, Troy.
Sure thing. It's one of the first things I thought about when I was giving this talk. All right, so first of all, plumbers always have a job. And this is a metaphor. Modern life is impossible without plumbing. So no matter what happens, plumbers are always going to have a job, because it's kind of a dull job, but it's everywhere, all right? If you can find something that is the equivalent of plumbing in software, you're going to be fine. This is probably not going to be a terribly sexy area of computing, but it will be very steady, right? Make sure that somebody couldn't invent a robot to do it, whatever it is, as far as you can tell.
So for example?
So for example, things like virtual servers. Anything that has to do with making the cloud run better. And this is like the guts of server programming. It's a specialty. It is vitally important. It can be very valuable. because there's just a whole host of people at Google, for example, that make sure the server can return your search result in a tenth of a second. It's a hard job, and it employs a lot of people. And it's probably always going to be there because it's not sexy enough to automate, honestly. So it's great. It may bore you, though, but if you sort of like think that you fall more on the accountant rather than rock star side of computing, plumbing jobs and computers are always there. You can usually always pick them up short term too if you want. If you're ever stuck and you need to find work, it's really good work. Getting a little bit more sexy, not too much more, but any kind of optimization, especially optimization of very large data sets. So let's say you've got a data set like Netflix has, okay? The renting and purchase habits of 70 million people for the month of January 2017. Now, there are all kinds of insights you can get from this to improve your service, right? And you give it to the logistics guys, and they're like, okay, we need to order this many more copies of, American Gigolo, and we can get rid of this many copies of The Flash, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how they solve those problems, a computer crunches it. But unless you optimize that data set, then the computer will take, even a good computer would take like 70 years to sort through it all. So what you have to do is write an algorithm to make it easier to do those big sorts. This is a pretty hard problem, and it's only getting more valuable. So if you do optimization of large data sets, that's going to be your customer. Any big corporation that generates lots of data, and more of them are going to be generating data. IBM is probably going to be the leader in this, but there are going to be a bunch of people who are working on it. And this gets pretty mathy and pretty computer sciencey, doing like sort algorithms and arrangements. Part of this stuff is due to the physical limits of computers, not even like memory or anything, but because they work with ones and zeros. When we get quantum computing and figure out how to write algorithms to do quantum problem solving, this is going to go away, but that's going to take quite a while. And even if it does come up, anybody who does large data set optimization will be very well poised to translate that to quantum computing, right? So that's another thing. And that's almost like plumbing. Scaling is a big one. Scaling is taking your cool app idea and making sure that it can run 2 million instances at once. So if you take Twitter, Twitter's big deal back in 2008 when I was in grad school was that it was built in Ruby. And everybody was really excited about this. But they used to have a thing, I don't know if you guys remember this, it was called the fail whale. Whenever Twitter crashed, you would get this screen with like this cute cartoon whale being lifted up by little birds. And it said, we'll be back shortly, the fail whale, right? So they don't have that so much anymore because what they realized was building this app in Ruby was a big mistake. It wouldn't scale up big enough. It crashed once you got over a few 100,000 users regularly. So as it grew, what they had to do basically was rebuild the car from the inside while it was running. And so they did that at a tremendous expense. And now it scales. If it gets another 1 million users tomorrow, that's fine. Their servers can handle it, right? People who work on scaling problems are always in demand because bigger is better on the internet. And so these guys are going to be in demand completely, right? That's a hot area. The final one that I came up with was artificial intelligence, which you guys have probably been hearing a lot about. That is probably going to be the game changer. And it comes from the invention of deep learning about 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm already starting to see that this is exploding like the internet was in 1995, which, by the way, I was around to see. But this is going to be unbelievably big. So deep learning, if you don't know about it, is just an algorithm to teach a machine system to get better at something. Whether that's identifying terrorists out of a face database or playing Breakout better than any human can, or, you know, anything like that. We do not even know what is involved with this. We don't know what the problem theory behind it is. We don't know what the uses are going to be. This is the big thing. If you have any interest in it whatsoever, like poke around with the math a little bit, with the underlying algorithms, know enough to be able to talk about it a little bit if you had to. If it's interesting, go into it, because this is going to be coming up again and again and again. If you decide to work in AI, you will also be able to see when your job is in danger of disappearing, because that is going to happen, even to tech people. And you will be able to shift in time because you already understand AI. So I've been thinking about what's going to happen in my job, which is user experience research, for the past 10 years or so. I am currently shifting slowly into doing human-computer interaction with intelligent entities, which is to say, convincing people that it's okay to deal with an actually intelligent robot. And this is a big problem. They don't realize it yet, but it will be in the next 5 years or so. So I'm getting ready, right, to deal with that. As tech people, you're going to have to like keep an eye on that. And it's not just like, oh, this is the new language I need to learn. There's going to be some of that. But like, what are the structural things with the industry? A lot of basic coding is going to be done by a machine within a decade. So you need always to, Kevin Kelly said, the future is going to be about humans thinking up new jobs for robots to do. So you need to be one of those people thinking up jobs for the robots. Because honestly, you are intellectually and educationally elite. Not everybody is going to be able to do this, and that's going to be a problem. What we're going to do about it, I do not know. But it will come up, certainly in your lifetimes.
So question towards the AI thing. If you are interested in machine learning, how much or how strong of a math background do you need to be able to get into it?
It gets a little mathy. That being said, if you understand some of the basic algorithms, it's getting easier and easier to use all the time. There's a difference between doing groundbreaking work in how this works and being able to use it. This is for anything, right? So if you want to go get a doctorate at MIT, that is a big job, but you will probably either get rich or do groundbreaking work or both. It's a lot of work, though. Becoming a neurosurgeon would be significantly easier, for example. But that being said, they're starting to release open source AIs that can do all sorts of things. And if you learn to work with those and use them to develop apps, that's going to be a tremendous asset to an employer or to a customer base or whatever. So it does need to be mathy. If you really want to get into it, you should probably get at least a master's. But and again, someplace like CMU or MIT or Georgia Tech. So those are some hot areas. If you, and I suppose I should say blockchain is going to be another hot area. I'm already seeing that in Atlanta. And Atlanta is probably going to be a center of this going forward if anyone is interested in what they're calling fintech. which is the code that runs like big financial houses, like people who do Visa clearinghouse work, the code that runs that stuff. Again, not terribly sexy, but very lucrative and very much in demand. So blockchain, Bitcoin, all that stuff is going to be big. And of course, security, as always. So the other thing that I wanted to cover was we talked a little bit about your portfolio, but also thinking about your online presence. And that is like setting up a web page for yourself and a blog if you can handle it. And just talking about like, computer science stuff or passing links, or just putting up example projects, right? That's going to help with the trust. And it will also extend to LinkedIn, which you guys should join fairly soon if you haven't already, and start thinking about your LinkedIn profile.
Advice for a tech-specific LinkedIn profile?
Yep. You can look at mine. A lot of that is, it's kind of a high-level thing because I'm a senior-level person, but basically if you look at the first paragraph of it, I have worked in a lot of keywords that recruiters are looking for. And for you, that would be things like languages you know, areas you work in, that sort of thing. Keywords like Cocoa or iOS or mobile or anything like that that you could plausibly do, right? Or that you're interested in. And so when these recruiters look for jobs, they will just do a keyword search, and well-written keyword posts like that will get calls. Also, any halfway decent employer will look at your LinkedIn post before they decide to interview you or not. So, take advantage of it. It's really, really useful.
Do you propose getting the premium LinkedIn? Because I've been trying to email software engineers around the area and go on coffee dates with them, but you can't send email to people you're not connected to. It's awful.
That is the biggest. Don't even get me started. Yeah. Because, however, what you have to do is get sneaky. All right. Find out their email address, and then connect with them using their email address in the message, and they'll let you do that. If you can't find their email address, find out what groups they belong to. Join that group. And then if you go to the group page, this is like a total pain in the butt, but if you forget the steps, Google it. People have found this out. If you join that group, then you can message the person directly, even if you're not connected. And they'll usually connect with you. And you can only do this like 15 times a month, but until you're actively looking, that should be plenty. And also, of course, there's like Meetup and LinkedIn and stuff like that to look at. If anybody is really ambitious, you could start a Microsoft club on campus, and Microsoft will give you a bunch of free crap. It's kind of, it's a little bit of work, but they will shower you with stuff. And if you're willing to take on the ability, I have a couple people who could help you out with that. You could drop a word in Microsoft's ear. But they've done things like host Xbox tournaments, encourage you to use Microsoft stuff. It can be useful on occasion. And if not, no biggie, but it's out there. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like getting yourself out there and getting yourself known, that looks good to employers. You just got to say, how can I signal to somebody that I'm worth a lot of money? Well, because you're smart, you know what you're doing. That's what. And in fact, looking prepared like this is going to make them think that you know what you're doing, whether or not you do.
In addition to grad school and that kind of networking, can you recap for them what you were talking to me about on the phone about just having the tenacity to approach hiring managers directly for companies you might like to work for?
Yes. Yes. And this is what I like to call internet stalking. So I trust you will not use these powers for evil. But one reason LinkedIn is so good is because it lets you do a company search. So first of all, use your Google, find out companies you might be interested in. And you know, if you want to shoot for the moon and you want to like work for Electronic Arts or something, that's great. That's cool. It's going to be some work though, because everybody likes to work for them. What you do is you Google around and you find out people who work for your target company. You look at where they went to school. You look at what their interests are, if they have any, on their page. You look at like their work experience and if they know anybody you know. And then if they've got openings, don't apply through their website. Drop the person an email directly and ask them if they have any advice or could give you any insight about this position. And then ideally what happens is they go and look at your LinkedIn profile. Man, you look great. You look with it. So you know what? Hey, why don't you apply? I'll just make sure somebody sees your application, right? Or they ignore you, in which case, no big. Internet's a big place. Just keep going. And if you still want to work there, just apply. And chances are they'll see you, remember you, you know. Whatever you do, try not to just apply for something because I guarantee you it will go into a black hole. There are too many applications. There's not enough time. And of course, an even better thing is to contact the person and ask if you can buy them coffee and ask them questions about their company and what they're doing. Or ambush them at an event they're at. Now, you got to be very delicate about this. Like if they're at the local Chamber of Commerce meeting or something, just be like, you know, I've heard so much about Yoyodyne Industries, and I was wondering if maybe, you know, I'm just starting out, and maybe you could like, let me buy you a cup of coffee sometime next week. And if you're nice and polite and you don't ask them for a job, don't do that, then they will start talking with you. And then if they like you, they'll be like, you know, why don't you send me a resume and I'll look around, or, you know, my friend Bob, or whatever. And even if nothing happens, even if it's a giant disaster, you have made yourself better. Because that's the thing. You make yourself a little bit better every day, and you're going to be awesome after a while. Because you're practicing. Practicing and practicing. And eventually, it doesn't suck so bad. And believe me, I am about the most introverted person on earth, even by New College standards, despite my behavior when I was at New College. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
And can you also recap another thing you were telling me about how some job postings are not really what they seem? Remember that?
Yes. Yes. All right. I'll give you a metaphor here. Let's suppose that you are in a baseball field and you're trapped there. And the only way you can get out is to hit a home run. And there's a pitching machine that pitches you. So how many pitches would you like to be given to you? 1?
Infinite, probably.
Probably one.
What?
Probably one.
Would you like more than one, maybe?
You have to hit it the right way, because if no one's
You have to hit a home run to get out. That's the only qualification.
I'd like infinite. I don't know.
Exactly. You would want like 50 million pitches. You would want so many pitches that like the machine would break down. So when you're looking for a job, that's one pitch. Don't be like, okay, this pitch, if I make it, then, but if not, it may not work out. Line up 50,000 pitches, okay? And so to get back to the original point, a lot of times companies will put out an ad for a job. Wanted, Cocoa mobile app developer. And of course, that looks fantastic. You're like, but wait, that's me. It may or may not be a real job. They may just be collecting resumes of developers so that when one opens up, they can call you, which maybe never. You never know. Or, their nephew might need a job, and the boss is like, all right, fine. He kind of knows what Cocoa is. Hire him. So that's why applying off a website is not always the best idea. Or better, it's just kind of a pitch that's probably not going to connect. Because everybody's looking for those guys, right? Everybody wants a skilled JavaScript programmer with mobile development experience. Everybody. So if you swing at that and you don't hear anything, don't get too bent out of shape. They may not have even been taking applications for the job. And that's also why you should break the rules whenever possible. Break in line. Approach the hiring manager directly. At some point, they'll be like, okay, well, now you have to go deal with HR. When they do that, then do it. But you don't have to go through HR first. Don't be like everybody else. Break in line, cut in line. And it's going to be easier for you because you're actually in a field that has a lot of demand, whatever you end up choosing to do. So it's a bunch of pitches.
Oh.
You're going to miss a lot of them. That's okay. Just keep swinging. Keep out there and keep trying. Because when you hit one, man, is it going to feel good. You're going to be making a lot more money than your peers. You're going to have a lot fewer economic worries. It's going to be great. You're going to be able to take time and do what you want, if that's what you want. I use money as a shorthand, right? Maybe you don't want to be rich. That's cool. But it'll give you choices, which is the real mark of wealth. I can choose to take 3 months off and go hang out in Thailand on the beach, right? Or I can choose to buy a house, before I'm 25, whatever.
Troy, in some professions, belonging to a professional group and going to conferences is a really good way to network. Is that the case in the tech fields?
Yes, it can be. However, the problem is they're usually really expensive. There are a bunch of user conferences every year in whatever you want to think of, like Drupal or Ubuntu or JavaScript or, whatever the hell, right? You can go to them, and what it is a bunch of vendors will show up and be, selling their services, some of whom might want to give you a job, or that you could leave a resume with. They're going to be speakers. They're going to be people to meet. This is great. If you can get in by volunteering to help with the conference, do that. But it's probably going to be out of your price range for a while, because most of these things are like, a couple $1,000s. And one reason they're so expensive is that people like me can say to marketing or whoever, hey, expense this, I'm going to this conference. And they'll be like, fine, Troy, we don't care what it costs, So then I go. If you're just starting out, it's more difficult. But the conference organizers usually look for volunteers, like, you show up, you help people get badges, you do little minor jobs, and in return, you get to go to the conference for free, which is a good way to get in on this if you're interested. And you can meet some great people. So yeah, it's an option, certainly. I wouldn't pay to go to one, even if you guys had the money at this stage of your career. But if you can get in for free somehow or get a discounted student ticket, always play the student card. And that being said, you might also want to join the Association for Computing Machinery, or ACM. It's kind of boring, but it is the professional association for computer scientists, and you get a radically discounted rate. And if you say you're an ACM member, you get all these other like benefits and stuff, including access to their job boards and things like that, and their forums. Which is another place you can start, like, you know, having opinions and learning and becoming a thing, right? Becoming known online.
So we have just a couple minutes left before we switch over to the other coffee talk. Any of you have any final questions for right now?
So what about like what not to do when you're like trying to kind of reach your ideal career, I guess?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
So in this, man, I'm sorry, my English is bad.
No, that's fine.
Say it a little louder, Tim.
No, I'm thinking the word I want to use. Yeah, so for the outline for the coffee talk, right, there is a kind of like lessons learned, what not to do point.
Uh-huh.
So can you talk about this a little bit?
Yes. Dress up for the interview. You probably don't want to wear a suit or a tie, depending. If you're at a bank, wear a tie. You can also ask the recruiter or whoever sets up the interview how you should dress. And for women, this is much more flexible. Basically, just look nice. You know, wear like a businessy kind of thing, and you'll be fine. You will probably be asked some kind of programming question at your interview. A good way to prep is to Google the name of a particular language you do, interview questions. So if you do a lot of COCO work, Google COCO interview questions, and then take a look at some of those problems. You may see something like that. Most decent tech companies will want to see how you think. And a good one will give you a problem that they know you can't solve in the time allotted. Ask questions. Talk about how you are thinking about how to solve the programming problem. Talk about your assumptions. And I guess finally, an important thing to learn about before you go out, because everybody's going to be talking about it, it's a big buzzword, is Agile. Read about Agile methodology. And there is so much free information about this via Google that I'm not even going to give you a specific thing. Just Googling what is Agile can tell you about it. Most employers are going to ask if you work that way. And so you should be able to talk about it a little bit. It's just a way of structuring projects, basically.
Awesome. Anything, any final thoughts you wanted to share at this point, Troy?
I think that's about it. Please join the Damon on Facebook if you haven't already. And you can reach me through there or at my email, which Michelle can give you. And I'm here to answer questions, give you help, whatever, anytime. I'm already helping one recent grad with a project she's working on. So, like, you know, we're trying to set up a little thing here, and I'd love to talk tech with anyone if you ever want to.
All right, awesome.
Sounds good.
So this does not have to be the end of the conversation.
Definitely not. Yeah, just chime in whenever you'd like.
I'm going to